With the release of Title Update 3, the awesome Final Fantasy XIV Special Collab has arrived in Monster Hunter Wilds, bringing with it the most epic and challenging hunt to date. We are able to face off against Omega Planetus, a new exceptionally dangerous threat, in a unique raid-like encounter reminiscent of those you find in MMOs. Whilst the standard version is already plenty challenging, it's the Savage difficulty event hunt that has been really pushing hunters to their limits. I've already done a video going over 12 essential tips to help you take down Omega. I'd highly recommend watching that as well alongside this one, but if you're ready for some bonus advanced tips to help give you that extra edge versus Savage, then let's get straight into maximizing your OPness. I'm going to ease you in with the first few of these, which may seem a little redundant or even somewhat condescending. I'm not trying to be, but they serve as super important starting points and will make a massive difference to hunters of all skill levels. Advanced tip number 1 is to go out of your way to create a specific item loadout for you to take out versus Omega Planetus. Make sure you've added the Soul of the Pictomancer, as this isn't automatically added in but is required in order to cast Pictomancy, the powerful new spells added in this update. In addition to this, I recommend taking all your attack and defense up items like Mega Demon Drugs, Mega Armor Skins, the powders and the seeds, as well as group healing items like life powders and dusts of life, and very importantly, which far too many hunters skip out on, cleansers. These will allow you to instantly break free of the frozen status ailment if you happen to get caught in it, which will be super helpful in preventing follow-up cards. Your optimal status recovery will automatically change over to a cleanser once you're frozen, so hitting that from your radial shortcut will deal with it no fuss. Advanced tip number 2 is to help you from getting rocket fisted quite so much. While you are of course able to simply attack them or even block them, you're also able to quickly and safely detonate them from a distance by using your hook slinger, spare slinger ammo, or even your unlimited throwing knives. This can be really nice to just deal with it up front and then carry on with the fight afterwards, rather than awkwardly waiting for it to come at you. Hope you clip it during your combo and potentially risk getting robo sucker punched with explosive consequences. You're also able to detonate other fists that are targeting your teammates this way. If you or a member of the squad is using a ranged weapon, this may not be applicable, but it's great to keep in your back pocket for all the other times that it is. This is the last of the more kind of obvious ones, easing you into the whole thing. Advanced tip number 3 is knowing all of the ways you are able to spawn in the energy shields in order to protect you from all of the projectiles, missiles, and laser beams that Omega Planetus so graciously launches over your way. The first is to destroy the glowing Omega Micro, those mini exploding Omegalings, and you specifically do have to defeat it before it Sudokus on you, as that will not spawn a shield. The second is to destroy any head wound on Omega, including but not limited to those that are created and perhaps even destroyed during a mount, creating a shield right in front of him. The third lesser known method is to use a focus strike against the weak point that appears after Omega fires any form of face laser, which includes the floating powerful laser beam and the 5 spread lasers too. A shield will drop in the same way as the head wound does, and the weak point will go on cooldown for a period afterwards. Regardless of which head laser it was that was focus striked, they both share the same cooldown. Lastly, upon fully breaking one of Omega's legs, a part will fall to the ground you can salvage for a slinger pod version of a shield, which you can fire out whenever and wherever you like. This is single use and only one hunter can grab it, and do be sure to make use of it, don't just let it sit there in your inventory. Advanced tip number 4 is to make use of thunder pods during the hunt to make Omega flinch. There are 2 spots in the stage with thunder cysts that can be gathered to load up 5 thunder pods as your equipped slinger ammo. The first one can be found in the second area at the front, and the second one is down below in the final area. If there are any more that I've missed, do let me know, but those are the only ones that I could see. The best time to use these is when Omega is charging up its devastating floating laser beam, the one that tracks a single hunter and is really dangerous, in an instance where it's likely to cart rather than be evaded or stalwart guarded. Fire a few pods at Omega's head until it flinches and cancels the attack, and you'll have avoided disaster. There may be other opportune moments to fire them to cause a flinch, but given that the mechanic already feels fairly temperamental, I wouldn't necessarily recommend spamming them with reckless abandon, but do make use of them if needed. Advanced tip number 5 is to ensure you're using all of the available large ice pillar environmental traps in the stage, each of which is worth a whopping 3k damage to Savage Omega for a total of 9k free damage. In the second area Omega flies off to, there is a cave-like recess towards the back which has 2 of the high damage large ice pillars hanging from the ceiling towards the right hand side. They're quite awkwardly positioned and require deliberate kiting to ensure you land them. In the third area where the Nasilla DPS phase takes place, there's another 3k damage ice pillar that can be pulled down towards the left of the area. Once more, kite Omega over or simply activate the trap immediately after it fires the Delta attack, as it's perfectly positioned for a guaranteed hit. All of the other small ice pillars deal around 600 damage and should be absolutely utilized as well. The next 2 tips are about the Nasilla clone that spawns in. Advanced tip number 6 is to grab the nearby Rockburst Slinger ammo ahead of the Nasilla clone spawning in, and to make sure you use it whenever it uses any web-slinging traversal maneuvers. Any of those moves can be interrupted with a Rockburst pod and will trip the monster over, ending its attack move and providing a short damage window for the entire group. This includes the very first guaranteed chase attack move it uses immediately after spawning in, which you will stop in its tracks, flip the Nasilla on its back, keeping it in place for everyone to go ham. This one change alone will completely transform your approach to this damage check and help ensure it will no longer be a wall, especially when used in conjunction with the unique FF14 endemic life. Building further on the previous tip, advanced tip number 7 are your best practices to follow for the Nasilla DPS check when the clone spawns in. Try to make sure you have your Pictomancy at level 3 primed and ready to fire Mog of the Ages, with all 4 hunters immediately dishing out a total 4k damage if done as an entire group. Consider taking a paralysis or a fire weapon as your secondary option, switching to it specifically for this phase, such as the Kutku bowgun or the juicy paralysis hammer, to further incapacitate and burst damage the clone. Try your best to stay underneath it if your weapon choice allows you to, avoiding most of the attacks while keeping your damage uptime high. Put on your Corrupted or Rocksteady mantle, the latter being the better choice that will avoid knockbacks and provide some damage mitigation as well. And lastly, try to make sure you don't accidentally kill the mini Marlboros before they finish using Bad Breath, or they won't actually cast it and you'll miss out on the paralysis. Advanced tip number 8 is to try to save your mount for later in the hunt, preferably the final phase, and doing your best not to blow your loads too early. By being mindful of your aerial attacks and where you're connecting with them, namely avoiding the top of the main body, you can steer clear of accidentally causing an early mount on Omega. The reason it's best to save it for the final phase, if at all possible, is simply because it is at its most dangerous, with a seemingly constant barrage of deadly attacks. The mount will slow the fight down considerably, earn you a wound on the back that can be activated for massive damage during the mount finisher, and additionally a wound placed on the head that can be destroyed for more damage, and to spawn a bonus shield for the group. A well-timed final phase mount can really make or break a run. Advanced tip number 9 is to activate wounds on Omega to cancel out whatever protocol and attacks he's carrying out. Whilst wounds shouldn't necessarily be stored for any significant period of time versus Savage Omega, as he will consistently heal them back up before they've been destroyed, being mindful of their capacity to flinch Omega out of its attacks is absolutely invaluable. This is especially so with the Panto Crater mode it goes into, when it has a temper tantrum very much so reminiscent of my teenage years. If during this you notice there are leg wounds available and you've got the opportunity to use a focus strike on one of them, this will shut it down immediately and potentially save your squad from some deadly attacks that can easily rack up carts in the blink of an eye. Advanced tip number 10 is to use your Sacred as a core tool during the fight rather than just a mode of travel between the stage areas. Savage Omega is notorious for spamming attacks back to back in a ceaseless onslaught of devastating blows, including but not exclusively to the MRV missile barrage. During these repeated attacks, it is very helpful to hop on your Sacred, arguably even essential, in order to safely avoid the majority, if not all of the attacks, minimizing damage and any risks of carting. Sometimes enmity has been lost right before Omega decides to cook up its MRV missiles. It's not always something that can be prevented, and sometimes you'll suddenly be targeted for the next mustard bomb when you're least expecting it. For all of these situations and more, your Sacred is going to be a tremendous help. So much more than just a vehicle of transport. Advanced tip number 11 is to be mindful of regularly swapping enmity with the tank, even if you or other squad members aren't particularly tank roles yourselves. The maximum HP debuff blast that Omega fires at the enmity holder poses a huge threat to the tank when they have any, but in particular 2 or more stacks, knocking a considerable portion of their maximum health off for its duration. This will only begin to expire when enmity has been swapped or dropped, so when Omega switches to the next area or another hunter grabs aggro. Pay attention to the UI on the side of the screen, and anytime the tank has 2 lots of the debuff, immediately start attacking Omega's head in order to pull enmity so the debuff can expire. And finally, for advanced tip number 12, fully breaking a leg will topple Omega and have it expose its very vulnerable back unit. Not only is this a prime opportunity for back shots from you and your squad, providing a large damage window, it's also a welcomed brief respite from the constant attacks. If you're close to it, switching your attacks to the back unit will deal a lot of damage, and if you do manage to break it, you'll instantly receive an Axle material part as a guaranteed drop, which is one of the rarer ones. You'll tend to get these leg breaks in the final phase, but you can also see them in the third Nacilla phase if your leg damage has been focused. As mentioned previously, it will cause an interactable part to fall to the ground, which can then be salvaged for a shield generator pod that you can fire at any time of your choosing. That's all of the 12 advanced tips to help you beat Savage Omega as painlessly as possible. Hopefully it'll be enough to snag you that first win if you still haven't quite managed it, or to just be a lot more consistent with your dubs. You can check out the first 12 tips video if you haven't caught that yet, as they'll be very useful to you as well. And if you do enjoy my style of guides, I do these sorts of videos for Monster Hunter Wilds and other games too. Feel free to subscribe for more, but either way, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you in the Forbidden Land.